Good morning, Night City! Is it a mirage? A hologram? No, my friends, it's clear, open skies. But don't take it from me. Get out there and enjoy the sun.
Hello, my name is Arif Iqbal, and this is WNS News. In today's international segment, reports of hardship have emerged from Alaska. According to the Incorporated Press, corn harvests have dropped by 80% from last year's yields, the result of catastrophically heavy rains and floods plaguing the region. Local authorities are under obligation to provide nearly 80 million bushels of their crop to Biotechnica, the engineers behind the frost corn hybrid species. The city of Juneau now faces a difficult choice of whether to honor the agreement, causing severe shortages in Alaska, or break the contract and forego next year's seed corn delivery from Biotechnica. Whether you believe Alaskans deserve humanitarian aid, or perhaps a lesson in self-reliance, cast your vote at the address below. Freak accident or targeted attack? Nanobees terrorize the residents of Milan. Eyewitness accounts tell us 7 million of the Fengwang nanobots suddenly ceased their pollination functions and buzzed straight for the Lombardy capital, though the cause remains unknown. The nanobees infested several buildings and moving vehicles, causing numerous reported accidents. The mayor of Milan, Lorenzo Ricci, announced the formation of an investigative committee to determine the cause behind the bizarre phenomenon. Ever dreamed of being a head of state? Now may be your chance. Luxury real estate firm No Limits at All has announced another 15 artificial islands, available for sale now. Each island spans at least 3 square miles and possesses a foundation built to withstand an 8 on the Richter scale. Because they are located in international waters, island owners fall under no nation's jurisdiction and are free to establish and enforce local law and custom. For more information on your future slice of paradise, visit the address below. In the meantime, this lovely West Coast weather isn't a bad substitute. Thanks for tuning in, Night City.
NC, back with you so soon? How's your afternoon? Where is the division between man and machine? To find the answer, check out the latest book from Richard Sanchez titled Chromo Sapiens. In a nutshell, according to Sanchez, humankind can never be fully automated because of, quote, all our damn brain chemistry. I wonder if this bestseller has made the Maelstrom Book Club's reading list.
So listen up, people. I'm going to give you a history lesson. It's been 50 years since the carbon plague hit. What's the carbon plague, you ask? It was a disease that only killed adults. It's a terrible thing, and it left a generation of orphans behind. But at least the kids that contracted, if they survive into adulthood, they make it with no lasting effects. At least that's what the docs say anyway, but I'm not so sure. See, back in the 2020s, just before the Fourth Corporate War broke out, this unidentified AV went down near Haywood. Whatever it was carrying, it was bad stuff. In less than a month, 600 adults had died of a previously unknown disease that just melted them, literally. The whole thing got contained, cleaned up, covered up. The CDC, back when that was a thing, said that it was some sort of flu. Yeah, like a flu that melts your body. But on the street, they knew the truth. It was a bioweapon. And on the street, they started calling it the carbon plague. Now, the story goes that the orphan kids mostly wind up going to surviving relatives, or the special orphanage the Knight Foundation set up after the tragedy. And the story should end there, but it doesn't. Some of those kids weren't the same afterwards. They could do things that shouldn't be possible. Mind reading, hacking without a deck, telekinesis, literally comic book stuff. Story gets murky at this point, but sometime during the war, those kids all vanished. Officially counted among the missing after the downtown bombing. Some say they ran off. Another story I've heard is that some corp got wind of their abilities and kidnapped them, using the chaos of the war as cover. Now, personally, I'd like to think they busted out, made their escape, and they live free to this day. So maybe some of them are listening now. If you want to tell me your story, give me a call. I'll make sure you can't be traced. And I'll make sure the truth gets known.
Hello, my name is Arif Iqbal, and this is WNS News. A dead city livens up the news today. Following the catastrophic use of biological weapons in Busan during the Militech-Arasaka conflict of the early 2020s, essentially all forms of life have been wiped clean from the megacity. Millions of people, animals, and plants were eradicated in a matter of minutes. And a similar fate awaits any to this day who strays too close to the southern edge of the Korean peninsula and the waters surrounding it. Though not all in the city lie still, automated systems powered by local tidal energy continue to operate unsupervised. Netwatch has warned that without proper maintenance, any Busan-based AI could, in time, pose a considerable threat. Arasaka has washed their hands of the issue, placing full blame for the ecological and subsequent technical crisis with Militech, who dropped the bombs. NUSA President Rosalind Myers has declined to comment on the matter. Meanwhile, in Europe, the Pedanian government is once again in the midst of a campaign to prevent illegal excavations and looting in the city of Venice. 4 looters and 7 carabinieri were killed in the most recent altercation. This city, submerged under the Adriatic Sea, still hides many centuries-old and priceless works of art. High demand from collectors has spurred on the continued looting. Official figures estimate the net worth of Venetian sculptures and jewelry sold illegally on the black market would be equivalent to 1/3 of the Pedanian economy's GDP. Most stolen works eventually find their way to collectors in private orbital stations, making reclamation a difficult process. Further west, Switzerland has officially become the first nation committed to a fully automated military by 2080. Already, 90% of the Swiss armed forces consist of Lobos, drones, and automated vehicles. The officer corps makes up the remaining 10%. As the Swiss government phases out its current officer corps, they will begin implementation of the CVS Pacem automated command system. As stated in the government's official press release, Switzerland can at last achieve its goal of true neutrality. CVS Pacem will secure our borders but will never position Switzerland as the aggressor. And that's the world's latest. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.
So hey people, listen up, I've got a story to tell. Goes back to an old friend of mine, a netrunner whose name I can't say on air for reasons of personal and global security. And she once told me that she knew the real origins of the net. This friend, she's been around. She started running back before the data crash, when the deep net was open to all. She survived the crash, dodged the rapids, persevered through the Netwatch purges and watched the black wall go up with her own virtual eyes, and she's not one to make up fairy tales. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because what she told me seemed unbelievable at first. So she tells me after a bottle and a half of Joe Teal, Mike, she says, the net isn't what it seems. She continued by asking me a question. Why do you think Bart Moss named them demons anyway? Because that's what they are. Raish didn't invent the net, he discovered it. She looked me dead in the eyes and she said, the net is hell, and Bart Moss opened the door. So over the next few hours, she lays out her case. She talked about the similarities between, how did she put it, hyperfractus stratified computational data synthesis and the practices of the legendary Scholomance. She said that Netwatch has its origins in the Vatican and that the Black Wall sings in Aramaic. Now, listeners, you know I'm a skeptical guy. I don't run every rumor I hear despite what my detractors might say. And I might have kept this one to myself if it weren't for the fact that I've known her for ages, and she's not a kook. So what do you folks think? I'd love to hear from some of the runners of my audience. I'm here to listen.
Hello, I'm Jillian Jordan. We begin the broadcast with troubling news from the state line. South California reportedly opened fire on a migrant caravan attempting to penetrate the wall. 27 people died and another 47 were injured. The surviving migrants are now being held at an undisclosed facility. This is just another in a series of similar incidents this year already. The South Californian government has so far declined to comment. This tragedy further emphasizes the need for unity under President Meyer's leadership. It is only under the guiding influence of the NUS government that future bloodshed can be avoided. To sign a petition calling on the Night City Council to rejoin the Union, please visit the address at the bottom of your screen. Stay tuned. More information after the break. Hello, Night City. This is Jillian Jordan with an N54 news campaign update. Exit polls for the Night City mayoral race have finally been tallied. Incumbent Weldon Holt of the Devolutionist Party received 47.8% of the vote, despite allegations of his complicity in the murder of Lucius Rhine, former mayor of Night City. But in a close race, Federalist candidate Jefferson Peralez still seized the election with 49.3% of the vote. In his concession speech, Mayor Holt offered his congratulations to the victor. Now we see whether Peralez will be able to realize his ambitious campaign promises. After the break, when will the Corsairs end their losing streak? Welcome to today's local news on N54. I'm Jillian Jordan. For the third consecutive year, Militech has been touted as Night City's best corporation to work for. This prestigious award can be attributed to the numerous employee benefits they offer, such as 5 paid vacation days a year, unlimited access to stimulant pharmaceuticals, and implant acquisition assistance. Were that not impressive enough, 34% of Militech employees have also been promised a retirement package. In other news, the NCPD welcomes a boost to its authority. As of today, the police may detain criminal suspects for up to 1 year without formal prosecution. The NCPD scored another victory with the adoption of a policy allowing the shooting of a limb to be considered a warning shot, a change that should keep officers safer. The Night City Office of Cybernetic Technology has been formally dissolved as a result of budget cuts. The office formerly responsible for implant certification will shutter its doors next Tuesday. The administrators of implant authorization are now the manufacturers, guided by the standards they themselves have established. Thank you for joining all of us here at N54 News. We'll see you next time.
Newsflash, people. You've heard about this relic that Arasaka's teaching to the rich and famous? It's all over the scream sheets. Copy your personality engram into a chip, and your loved ones don't have to say goodbye when you finally die. Carry your dear sweet grandma around on the chip, ask her for advice or pick me up whenever you need it. Eternal life of a sort. Of course, this is only on offer to the richest and most powerful people. Immortality isn't for squeebs like you and I, the common man. But is there more to it than that? We know that Arasaka's been working on mind emulation technology for half a century now. Most notably with the infamous Soul Killer. You've probably heard of it. It's a net weapon capable of copying your mind to a secure server and leaving your body an empty vessel. And what do they do with the copies? They interrogate them. There's some experimentation, a little torture, you know, the good stuff. So you, a billionaire executive, decide to get yourself copied, so your precious offspring never have to be without your sage wisdom. Or so you can give your annual speech at the company Christmas party. I mean, what would the world do without you? And Arasaka gladly makes a copy of your brain, puts it on a chip, and hands it over. But not before making a copy for themselves. And that copy goes straight to digital interrogations, where they pull your psyche apart bit by bit until they've squeezed every last memory out of you. Every compromising situation, every crime, every heartache, your secret fears and desires. And now you belong to them. Literally. Yeah, someone in Arasaka's marketing division should get a raise for this one. They've taken the most feared weapon in Arasaka's arsenal and turned it into a luxury consumer item. That's pretty impressive when you think about it. And remember, operators are standing by.
Hey, I'm Josh Kevorkian, and as always, your business is my business. We'll kick off the day with a broad scan of the market. Kiroshi climbs 2, Quadra dips by 1, New American Auto Works revs up by 1.5. But the day's big head turner? Orbital Air rocketing by 10 points. Don't touch that volume. You heard right. 10 points. But why? How? Coming off a disappointing year, no new announcements, the release of longtime CEO Leslie Wawuda. Who could justify even an any of investment into the stagnant aerospace giant? And yet, don't forget folks, many huge accounts out there are managed by AIs. You blink an eye and they've already bought and sold shares twice over in billion-euro-dollar deals. The problem is we don't always know what drives their decisions. And frankly, the owners of the funds they manage couldn't care less, so long as they see those profits ticking up. But my dear viewers, I say we dig deeper. How could Orbital Air grow so drastically, so quickly? My friends, I see only one logical explanation. Those AIs expect a big boost in demand for orbital flights in the very near future. But why? World war? Environmental catastrophe? Perhaps the rise of the machines? That we may never know. Whatever conclusion the AIs have deduced from their data crunch, they seem intent on keeping it to themselves. Regardless of our fates, the time to buy is now. After all, we may need the windfall to buy our tickets to the moon once the world finally goes to hell.
Well, that's a good question, listener. I'll tell you, I have lived in a mega building. In fact, I lived in one of the first ones ever built in Watson. I didn't have much option. It was either that or go outside and find a squat underneath a radioactive bridge somewhere. So, it's crowded. You get to know your neighbors real well. Some of them you don't want to get to know real well. But problem is, when you've got several 100,000 people, you got to put them somewhere. And Night City was not a good place to put people 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. There was a big hole in the ground, a lot of glowy stuff, and most of the inner city was wiped. So, what do I think? I think they're a necessary evil. They cleaned it up a bit. I mean, the first ones in Watson were a bit sketch. But we need them. They're not the best deal, but they might be the only deal we've got in town. This is the voice of Night City, Maximum Mike. Autonomous taxis, huh? I'm surprised they haven't done it more often. I mean, after all, they're not too smart. They're not like AIs or anything. I'm not even sure even AIs could do that. No, most probably someone hasn't been keeping up on all the real complex maintenance you need to do to keep one of these autonomous taxis on the road. And when you start cutting corners, that really simple, stupid robot stuff starts getting real simple and real stupid. So crashing into people, crashing into walls, buildings, could be anything, but I'd put it down to faulty maintenance instead of something real sinister. Of course, I could be wrong. If any of you listeners have anything you want to send in on me, call my producer. I'll look into it. Well, I suppose I could give you the usual claptrap the politicians do about thank you for your service, but they don't care, and they Didn't care when I mustered out either. What are you gonna do? Well, unfortunately, the nature of human beings the way they are, there's gonna be wars. And even if they're not declared wars, there's always gonna be a need for somebody who knows how to get around, use weapons, protect stuff, manage to get a hand onto, let's say, military hardware, know their way around it. So, what are you to do? I'd say be a solo. It's worked for me in the past. Probably worked for you.
Last game I dropped 53 points, got 24 boards, and 32 assists. Would have never even gotten close without him.
So, you'd recommend?
Get the job done. Girl, I jump around like a flea with these babies.
Ladies and chooms, the Cubit 2 from Biodyne, approved by Kevin King himself. Available tomorrow in authorized retailers. See you soon, and keep on chipping in. What up, Night City? How we feeling today? 'Cause I feel amazing. Why is that, you might ask? Well, it just so happens your girl just got a prototype of More Technology's latest beaut. The House Stock W forearms were originally designed for the military, but they've just been approved for general circulation. I had to wait for some nasty scars to heal before I fired these up for the first time, but when I did, we'll see for yourself. Here we go. Accept, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's ready. You guys recording? Sweet. 3, 2, 1, go. Holy shit! Did you get that? Now, I could go over all the fine-grained deets and specs, but I'm guessing that little demo spoke for itself. One thing I will say, though, for an extra premium, Morro will throw in some red-hot incendiary and stun modules for the House Stock W. All this just shows that More Technology's House Stock W implants are an excellent choice for security personnel, mercs, and of course, any ordinary night citizen struggling to get their pickled scop jars open. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. That's right, a 5 out of 5. See you next time and keep on chipping in.
Now, I'm sure you've seen the news. Yorinobu Arasaka's the new head of Arasaka Corporation. Yeah, I'm afraid that's not possible. The truth is, Yorinobu's as dead as a runner surfing the Blackwall, and he's been for the past 50 years. So I guess we should start beginning, right, people? Yorinobu, as a lot of you know, is the youngest son of Old Man Saburo. But he didn't take after his father, quite the contrary. Now, when Yorinobu learned what his father's enterprise really stood for, he left. Kid ran away from home, formed a biker gang called the Steel Dragons. They weren't just any street gang, mind you. They had a mission. Espionage, terrorism, assassinations, all aimed at the Arasaka Zaibatsu. They kept it up for years, too. But it all stopped on the day those towers in Corpo Plaza came down now. That's quite a coincidence, don't you think? The official story is that after the death of his big brother, Yorinobu came home, apologized to Big Daddy Saburo, and was accepted back into the family. That's a straight-up con, people. Yorinobu was in those towers when they got wiped off the map. Maybe even helped bring them down. And all the evidence is buried under 1 million tons of debris. We don't know. So who's this guy, you ask? The one on TV talking about his dear old dad and the virtues of the Arasaka family business? Yeah, I've got a few guesses. It's no secret Arasaka's been working on human cloning tech for almost a century now. So it's possible this guy is some sort of mind control clone of the original Yorinobu. Wouldn't that be just like old Saburo? Your kid doesn't turn out the way you want, so you just try again. Alternately, never figured out what happened to Kei, Yorinobu's older brother, after the war. Maybe he disappeared to a black clinic and he came out looking just like his younger brother, but without the stain of the fourth corporate weighing him down with bad PR. What do you think?
Hey, I'm Josh Kevorkian, and as always, your business is my business. We'll kick off the day with a broad scan of the market. Kiroshi climbs 2, Quadra dips by 1, New American Auto Works revs up by 1.5. But the day's big head turner? Orbital Air rocketing by 10 points. Don't touch that volume. You heard right. 10 points. But why? How? Coming off a disappointing year, no new announcements, the release of longtime CEO Leslie Wawuda. Who could justify even an any of investment into the stagnant aerospace giant? And yet, don't forget, folks, many huge accounts out there are managed by AIs. You blink an eye and they've already bought and sold shares twice over in billion-euro-dollar deals. The problem is we don't always know what drives their decisions. And frankly, the owners of the funds they manage couldn't care less, so long as they see those profits ticking up. But, my dear viewers, I say we dig deeper. How could Orbital Air grow so drastically, so quickly? My friends, I see only one logical explanation. Those AIs expect a big boost in demand for orbital flights in the very near future. But why? World war? Environmental catastrophe? Perhaps the rise of the machines? That we may never know. Whatever conclusion the AIs have deduced from their data crunch, they seem intent on keeping it to themselves. Regardless of our fates, the time to buy is now. After all, we may need the windfall to buy our tickets to the moon once the world finally goes to hell. Hello, Night City. As always, your business is my business. Today, we crack open and dissect Morro Technologies, the industry leader in full-body conversion. Not long ago, Morro released its newest class of high-grade implants, the Brighthorn K Titanium Skull, Eiger T Bone Series, and the Houstock W Arm Series. Meanwhile, their first major success continues to rake in steady sales. The Liscam C Immunological Override System has proven an essential buy for cyberware enthusiasts everywhere. Yet, just last year, Morro Technologies was rocked by allegations that, relative to competitors, their implants greatly accelerate the effects of cyberpsychosis. But the PR and legal teams of the Swiss giant managed to quickly stomp out that fire. The journalist who broke the story, Franz K., was found guilty of defamation and sentenced to 10 years. All things considered, I see a bright light on the horizon for Morro Technologies in the coming years. My recommendation, buy now and never look back.
So people, listen up, I've got a story to share with you. Recently, I've been hearing about this monk that's been walking around nice city streets, healing the sick, but only those he deems worthy. Some of my listeners seem convinced that it's none other than Raish Bartmoss. Raish Bartmoss. Yeah, you know, the guy, the chief architect of the net, and later its badass destroyer. The rumor has always been he got taken out by a killsat in the early days of the fourth corporate, but no one ever took responsibility for that strike. Is it possible Bartmoss set his creations wild and faked his own death? Did he bring down the net he created because it had turned into another tool the corporations could use to track us and to ultimately completely subjugate us? Think about it. Okay, people, listen up. This one comes to me from a listener who raises a great question. And he suggests an answer. How does the Arasaka family live so long? What about the Lucases, or half a dozen other high-profile corpo families that are pushing 200 years at this point? His answer? The vampires. The world is ruled by vampires. Well, folks, I can't say I haven't thought about it that way, but let's consider the evidence. There's the obvious. They seem to live forever and they look good doing it. Have you seen the documentary recently about Hanako Arasaka? She doesn't look a day over 40, but she's currently pushing her 8th decade. They drink blood. Yeah, checks out. They drain this city for sure. They sleep in coffins. Well, I do happen to know Saburo Arasaka spent the better part of this century in a medical tank to keep him alive. What do the med techs call it? Ah, the sarcophagus. Yeah, it's more of a mummy thing, but close enough. They can only be killed with a wooden stake. And I'm not sure about this one. But maybe someone should test this out and let me know.
Oh my God, Juanita here. Today's news is Novamax. Carrie Urdine performed on stage. I'm serious, people. And with who? With the kick-ass cuties from Muscracks. They did a collab on the cult hit Off the Leash. But with a new wild, wild twist. I saw it live and wow, just wow. Energy off the scales. Looks like rumors of Carrie's depression were just noisy chatter. That man was electric. The new Ass Crack single featuring Carrie will have its official premiere tomorrow at midnight. If you don't get it, we can't be friends. Whew! After the break, Linda Oz breaks her silence on her former ex. Ooh.
Hello, Night City. As always, your business is my business. Today we'll be taking a deep dive into Petrochem Better Life. How's the Chew2 super producer doing these days? In a word, tanking. 2076 was a painful year for Petrochem, thanks to severe droughts. Soybean and corn, the fuel's primary components, suffered record low yields. And the salt in the wound? The governments of Brazil and Colombia, where Petrochem has its largest plantations, have planned to seize crop harvests in an effort to quell surging famine and unrest. Although Petrochem's expert team of lobbyists have prevented the seizures so far, company stock still plummeted as much as 11% last year. But before you kick him out of the window, Petrochem CEO Lars Mohammed announced last week the planned acquisition of 1 million acres of arable land in the USSR, specifically in its Kazakh, Turkmen, and Dagestani territories. Such a weighty investment likely ensures the company will never again suffer from supply shortages that could slow the flow of Chew2. Should Mohammed's gamble pay dividends, we can expect a mighty resurgence of investor confidence and skyrocketing stock prices. In other words, get out there and buy, buy, buy. And that's today's juiciest take. Until next time, Night City.
Tonight, I'm going to be separating the lies from the truth, or at least giving it a damn good try anyway. So let's look at the first theory, eh? This one's promoted by the NUSA, Militech, and the Federalists. They tell us that Arasaka self-destructed the tower to prevent Militech from seizing the building and liberating Night City. Hey, if you listen to the story from someone like President Kress or the Pentagon, Arasaka blew themselves up as an act of spite. Knowing they were losing the battle for Night City, they detonated a nuclear device in their own HQ to prevent it from falling into the hands of the enemy and ensuring that the resulting destruction would keep the Americans busy picking through the debris. Yeah, right. This story is full of holes. They weren't losing the battle for the city, and they had no reason to blow themselves up. On the contrary, at that point in the war, the high brass in the U.S. government were getting pretty damn tired with this war, and they were getting ready to end it by any means necessary, and that put Militech in a pretty tight spot. What's true here is that Arasaka did have a nuclear self-destruct device in the building, but I promise you, that wasn't the source of the explosion that night. The weird thing is, no one ever found that Arasaka nuke, intact or otherwise, in the rubble. Which means that thing is still out there somewhere. I've got another theory I want to float past you, this time from the Arasaka side. Arasaka's always said that Militech was behind the bombing. After having been repeatedly humiliated in their attempts to take the city, they finally employed a commando team to infiltrate the building and plant that nuke. According to Arasaka, the people of the city stood with their patrons from across the Pacific and were instrumental in Militech's repeated military failures in the city. They also say that Night City wasn't just collateral damage, but the secondary target. I believe Militech was behind the attack. That's what my sources tell me. But Arasaka isn't telling the whole truth either. And the stuff about the loyalty of regular Night citizens to their friends in Arasaka is a damn lie. It's true that Militech had reached a stalemate in the battle for the city. Arasaka's military was well contained. In reality, the attack was meant to destroy Arasaka's secret weapon. What weapon? We'll get back to that in a bit.
Good evening, Night City. We begin tonight with a look at the stock market, as always. Following another attack on Arasaka's Night City HQ, the Japanese Goliath has plummeted by 17%. And we should expect that slide to continue, say analysts. According to a statement from the NCPD, the attack was carried out by a group of nomads who pierced the tower via a maglev railway tunnel. Panic has saturated the market. This latest slump has led to losses in excess of 500 billion euro dollars. Arasaka CEO Yorinobu Arasaka has since evacuated his Night City office for Tokyo. In light of these events, I have only one recommendation, my friends. Sell. Sell now, while you still can.
This is the voice of Night City, Maximum Mike. I've been hearing some distressing reports that some of my regular listeners have been roughed up, questioned, and in some cases vanished, all by forces unknown. Now, remember, folks, I'm protected. They're never going to be able to lay a hand on me if they could even find me. But for you, the listener on the street, well, they already prey on you every day. I want you to be careful who you talk to out there, people. I want you to stay safe. I think Richard Knight made way too many enemies. This is a man who went on his own path. He wanted to build this place into a super city, a city of the future. You don't do that sort of thing in a world as corrupt as it was back then. And I'm pretty sure that between the mob, the governments, the corporations, he had enough enemies. Probably he didn't just get shot. There was probably a line outside his apartment. And the reason no one's ever figured out who did it? Well, that's because there were too many people who would have done it. He's a good man, but I think he picked the wrong enemies.
The moves on this girl. Swoosh, swoosh. Slicing them up like sashimi. Now, a lot of you called and asking what kind of edge she's packing. Your girl Karina here got a mighty enhanced look, and I'm almost 100% positive they're Daikon NT Mantis blades by Arasaka. Perfect for those who put personal safety first. Not to mention discreet, too. Look, we all know Arasaka chips all its employees mid-level and up with these bad boys. They even throw in their high-sensitivity automatic defense reflexes for good measure. But you don't need to be some blue-chipped corpo to flash this kind of tech. The Daikon NT Mantis blades are available for every ordinary Night citizen, long as they got deep pockets. Thanks for tuning in today, my chooms, and remember to keep on chipping in.
Hello, my name is Arif Iqbal, and this is WNS News. In today's international segment, we turn our eyes towards Asia. The summit between China and India has ended with the signing of a new trade agreement. Under the agreement, the tariffs for iridium, dysprosium, and lanthanum, rare metals necessary for the construction of the Chi-Yu-2 orbital station, have been lifted. The signatories have also agreed to the free movement of organic persons and biopodders between the two countries. This is the latest step in the two nations' push for greater economic integration, and the benefits such cooperation brings. This flies in stark contrast to the NUSA's protectionism and trade war policies under President Myers. In science news, Biotechnica researchers have announced another breakthrough in genetics: the restoration of 3 previously extinct animal species: the North American beaver, the swift fox, and the eastern cottontail. Though back from the dead, these species will not be reintroduced to their natural habitats for fear of an increased risk of zoonotic disease, similar to the great bird flu of 2061 and the rat fever of 2072. For the time being, the animals will only be grown on special order. The people of Turkey are bracing themselves for a radioactive sandstorm yet again this year. Meteorologists expect southern winds to carry several dozen tons of irradiated dust from the former states of Syria, Iraq, and Iran. The fallout from these territories, devastated during the so-called suicide war, remain the primary source of radiation that falls onto Europe and the eastern Mediterranean. After the break, we take a closer look at the new sneakers from Avante that hit Night City shelves tomorrow.
Welcome to Safe and Sound. My name is Sergeant Dobbs. Have plans to leave town? Then don't miss this episode. Poor Mr. Puggins has to make a trip outside the city. What should he know beforehand? First and foremost, never leave city limits without at least a week's supply of food, water, and Chew-2 canisters. Better to be safe than sorry. Second, whenever you can, share the road with someone. And make sure they're well armed, because sometimes bullets can be more valuable than water. Third, remember to check the day's weather forecast for any sandstorm warnings. And last but not least, always be sure to have a valid border pass when you reach city limits. As you can see, the border defense watchtowers made Swiss cheese of our dear, innocent friend, instead of the nomad outlaws trying to invade our city. Speaking of nomads, Mr. Puggins will have to keep a sharp eye out once he enters the Badlands. Out there, he won't have the brave men and women of the NCPD at his back. At the first sign of any nomad activity, Mr. Puggins should head straight back to the safety of the city, or risk becoming vulture kibble in a roadside ditch. Remember, leaving the confines of Night City is not a matter to be taken lightly. If given the chance, always travel by air. That's all for this episode of Safe and Sound. Stay alive out there.
This is N54 News with a breaking story. A cyber psycho attack shocks Wellsprings. Lester McKenzie, age 28, opened fire at the River Mall shopping center. The shooting lasted 10 minutes before the assailant was killed shortly after MaxTac forces arrived. 35 people were pronounced dead at the scene and another 20 remain in critical condition. The Implant Manufacturers Association has issued a statement in response to the incident, stating, quote, "Our thoughts and prayers go to the victims and their families. We at the IMA extend our sincerest condolences in the wake of this unavoidable tragedy." End quote. River Mall administration has announced plans to reopen within the hour. They have offered a 50% discount at participating stores to the families of the victims. Stay tuned to N54 News for developments on this story. Hello, Night City. This is Jillian Jordan with an N54 News campaign update. Exit polls have finally been tallied. Incumbent Weldon Holt of the Devolutionist Party received a paltry 27.2% of the vote. His campaign floundered following charges filed against him in a murder investigation of Lucius Rhine, former mayor of Night City. Federalist candidate Jefferson Peralez won a resounding victory with 70.7% of the vote. In his concession speech, Mayor Holt offered his congratulations to the victor. Now we see whether Peralez will be able to realize his ambitious campaign promises. After the break, when will the Corsairs end their losing streak? Hello, Night City. I'm Jillian Jordan with N54 News, and this is your World News Update. At this year's Federalist Party National Convention, NUS President Rosalind Myers announced her intent to run for another term. Her campaign slogan, "A Return to Unity," sends a clear message of the president's desire to, quote, strive for unification on every possible front. According to an N54 News poll, approximately 78% of Night City residents would like their city to join the Union. Time will tell if the hopes of these many people will be realized. At a press conference earlier today, scientists from Kierling University demonstrated the extraordinary capability of a next-gen 3D printer they have dubbed Artifacts. Artifacts is capable of interpreting the user's brain activity to then produce the object they have visualized in their mind. The printer, which has been engineered in cooperation with Swiss giant Morro Technologies, is expected to be commercially available as early as next year. Australia says farewell to the last koala living in the wild, affectionately dubbed Omega. Though technically a wild animal living on the outskirts of Sydney, the city government supported the fluffy marsupial with 11 pounds of eucalyptus leaves and fresh water from the municipal botanical garden every day. Omega garnered huge media attention a few years ago when Sydney residents organized a protest in response to the planned euthanasia by Blue Mountain Disease Control of nature's last surviving real-life teddy bear. That's all for today's World Report. Thank you for choosing N54 News.
Hey y'all, Karina here, your BDMD. Have you relived the passion of Joshua yet? If that's a no, then drop everything and slip that wreath on. Now, I've come across a lot of emotionally powerful BDs in my time. Birth, death of a loved one, even rape, as horrible as it sounds. But this, wow! This is on another level, like a revelation, a true-to-life miracle. I felt like I was touching heaven, like God spoke to me. I was bawling like a baby. I'm serious. I'm telling you, it's a BD experience everyone ought to relive. Today, right now. The Passion of Joshua is already available on all feeders for only $39.99, and it's worth every penny. Be right back with more BD news from around the world after the break.
Hello, Night City. As always, your business is my business. Today we tackle a homegrown giant in defense. You guessed it, Militech. At first glance, Militech's portfolio looks gold-plated. 500,000 employees worldwide, profits in the hundreds of billions, capitalization on the order of some 2 trillion. But do we accept these jaw-dropping numbers as the product of healthy competition? Or being in bed with the authoritarian NUSA government? The line between Militech and the feds has always been fluid. CEO Donald Lundy previously headed the Pentagon. Elizabeth Kress, former president of the company for the greater part of a decade, later became president of the NUSA. And who replaced Kress in the Oval Office? Rosalind Myers. Surprise, surprise, Militech's former CEO. Responsible for over 60% of contracts, the NUSA is far and away their largest customer. Though, in truth, these sales amount to no more than hidden government subsidies. This should raise a huge red flag for any investor with half a brain. Militech is suckling at the giant teat that is the capital. But should Washington ever run dry, kablamo! Want my recommendation? Sell, sell, and sell some more. And if you're unsure where to shove all that cash on short notice, you can't go wrong with the Arasaka money machine. Stay steady and make eddies, my friends. Until next time, NC.
Konnichiwa, Night City. I'm Arif Iqbal, and this is WNS News. We begin today's broadcast with a piece of welcome local news. Next year, Night City will play host to a Japanese festival of culture. The lineup of activities will include anime brain dances, a concert series featuring the year's hottest Aidoru, as well as culinary workshops. The festival's headlining sponsor is the Arasaka Corporation. To them, I offer my own personal heartfelt arigatou gozaimasu. In other news, the homeless population in Night City has risen by 300%. The NCPD has announced that it will soon launch a sweeping catch and release program to relocate the vagrants outside city limits. The police are asking any willing volunteers eager to help in the effort to report to their local NCPD station. In exchange, the police are offering the chance of a criminal record reset to those who actively participate. Night City, what does it mean to you? How well do you know its history? Who was Richard Knight? How many stations are in the NCART system? Which city district boasts the best burrito in town? The answers to these questions and more can be found at the address at the bottom of your screen. Check it out and fall in love with Night City all over again. That's it for today's latest. Thank you for spending your day with WNS News. Hello, Night City. Thank you for tuning in. It's time for the local news. The long-awaited execution of Joaquin Schmidt, better known as the Watson Butcher, is scheduled to take place tomorrow. The 27-year-old confessed to the murder of 21 people, including his own sister and mother. His execution will be open to the public, and for those who prefer to watch from home, it will be live-streamed at the address you see at the bottom of your screen. This event's organizer, Capital Corrections Incorporated, promises a compelling spectacle as well as attractive prizes for a few lucky viewers. Attention Charter Hill residents. A recent study commissioned by All Foods has shown hazardous levels of lead and cadmium in your tap water that pose a significant risk to human health. The Night City Department of Water Management has attributed any elevated toxicity to obsolete municipal piping, though has made no plans for their replacement. Drinking bottled water remains the safest way to reduce your risk of waterborne illness. And remember, it's always cheapest at All Foods. NCART representatives have said to expect ongoing delays on the M2 Metro line. Arroyo Station was evacuated after its early warning system detected a massive population of rats dwelling in one of the tunnels. Pest control was immediately called to exterminate the infestation. But the NC Transport Authority has announced the station will remain closed until further notice. And that will do it for today's local news segment. Have a pleasant day, Night City.
Good evening, Night City! My guest today is Mark Muratovich, author of Flowers of Silence, the untold story of Hanako Arasaka. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks, Ziggy. Happy to be here.
Tell me, did you ever consider researching a less hazardous topic? Maybe scavenger chop shops or the inside of a volcano?
Well, it's true. Saburo Arasaka wasn't exactly ecstatic to hear I'd taken such a keen interest in writing a piece on his beloved daughter.
Now, in case my dear viewers don't recall, the last person to pen a biography on Hanako Arasaka committed suicide. The poor man shot himself 10 times in the back.
Yes, well, that was a sad story, but of course he wrote his book in secret. without express consent.
I certainly hope you haven't made the same mistake.
Heavens, no.
Phew. So then, tell us, Flowers of Silence. How did you come up with that title?
It comes from an old Japanese proverb, unspoken words are the flowers of silence. I feel it encapsulates Hanako so perfectly. She leaves her residence only a few times a year, rarely speaks publicly, and is always surrounded by a small army of bodyguards.
Wow, how does she occupy so much time cooped up in that crystal cage of hers? Origami? Crossword puzzles?
I'm afraid I don't know, but her villa is equipped with a private fiber optic cable capable of 300 terabytes of bandwidth. So...
Are you suggesting she's a netrunner?
Well, now, I didn't say that.
We have to take a quick break, but stay with us. I'm not done with our Mr. Mark Maratovich just yet. Welcome back to Night After Night. I'm Ziggy Q, and we have a special guest tonight. He wants to be your next mayor, Mr. Jefferson Perales.
Hi, Ziggy. How have you been?
Me? I didn't think you'd care. About me or any of us, for that matter. Let me refresh your memory.
But some cynics out there don't see Night City's beautiful potential as I do.
Do I love this city? Do I love its people? I have never loved anything. A classic Holt tactic.
How do you mean?
Well, that was taken out of context. I was responding to a question about my love for the city, and how I differ from your average CEO whose only goal is a fatter paycheck. Nasty tricks are a substitute for Holt's lack of achievements, I suppose.
Okay, Jeff, in that case, how would you heal Night City?
A 3% change, sure. But do you know how? Holt changed the status of Pacifica into a sort of unincorporated area, meaning that the district's statistics no longer drag down those of the whole city. It isn't progress, just creative bookkeeping.
But he claims both crime and unemployment have dropped under his watch.
For starters, I'd relinquish all corporate representatives from the Night City Council.
Whew! You know, it's refreshing to know some politicians still have a spine. More after the break. Night City, hello and welcome. Today we have been honored with the presence of a woman with a body of chrome and a voice of gold. Please welcome Lizzie Wizzy!
Hey, Ziggy. How's my favorite host?
You know, not so bad. I was just about to sit down with the hottest star on this planet.
Oh, please.
Well, you asked. So then, Lizzie, everyone's dying to hear about your new album, Fuck All Walls. Tell us, please, which walls you mean and why you'd like us all to, well, you know.
Well, those walls can be interpreted in different ways.
But the cover shows an actual wall, one separating North and South California. In fact, we have an image of it right here.
Yes. For me personally, I see the wall as the fracturing of society, the death of empathy.
Of course. What lies on the other side of that wall is something you can't see, and what you don't see can't concern you.
Exactly. California used to be a single state, much like the US was a unified country. Sure, many of us were divided by ideology, but something still connected us all. Today, though, it's everyone for themselves, cut off, isolated. We split people into camps of the best and the worst. Every day, dozens of people die at the foot of that wall, only because they seek a better life for themselves and their families.
But don't you believe every country has a right to defend its borders?
I think I can answer you best with a favorite quote of mine. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's why I say, fuck all walls!
Would you like to stand up for what you believe in? change the world for the better. If you buy Lizzie Wizzy's new album today, you'll receive her bonus track.